And he said, when you come to the fork in the road, take it. And he also said that in theory there's no difference between theory and practice, but in practice there is. I'm going to prove that to you by showing you a video. I contend that the practice of going to school every day is like a rather chaotic experience. Would you agree? If any of you who really pay attention to having like things to do during the day, what percent of those things do you get done during the day, wherever you work? 10% of your list, maybe, because of the chaos that ensues once you get there. You've got to have a certain attitude about these things if you're going to have success. And I want to show you that perspective. I think it's right over here. Here we go.
Some people like to climb mountains. I like to build planes in the air.
I grew up wanting to be on a wing, wanting to be up this high.
Sometimes the temperature up at altitude will reach 60 below. It's brisk, it's refreshing.
You never know what you're going to come across up here. Canadian geese, mallards,
owls.
These people back here, that's why I come to work. That's why I build airplanes in the sky.
We're not just building a plane here. We're building a dream.
I love this job.
I get a lot of thanks up here. When I look over there and I see that little kid, and I look in his eyes, that's all the thanks I need.
EDS, managing the complexities of the digital economy.
Was that cool? I just love that to death because it really does talk about what the reality is. You're building this airplane while it's flying. I had a state superintendent one time in Utah who said, I know how to fix education in Utah, Steve. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to tell the parents right now, it was about May, that they're not going to bring their kids to school next year. And they can keep them home. We're going to bring all the adults in. We're going to spend the year and fix everything. Now, I believe that would actually work, if you can get away with it, because you could actually kind of spend time and actually not have the kids there and actually fix it all, but it's not going to happen. You've got to learn to build that airplane while it's flying along. One of my heroes is Professor Dumbledore. I mean, what a headmaster, right? I'm telling you, did he help Harry Potter become the great wizard that he is? I'm talking about this as if it's nonfiction because it is, I think, isn't it? But anyway, he said one time, it's our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. So let's just kind of talk a little bit more about that. Randy Pausch, the professor who gave the last lecture, the professor at Carnegie Mellon, said brick walls are there to stop the people who don't want it badly enough. That's why brick walls exist. They don't exist for any other reason. How much do you want it is the question. So I created this model for talking about RTI, and for the last bit of time that we have, I'm going to kind of go through this model with you to talk about what RTI really is becoming right now in terms of this revolution. And it's based on this book title that Tom Peters wrote in the 80s called Thriving on Chaos. If you agree with me that the day is chaotic, the choice is, are you going to be overwhelmed by it or are you going to thrive on it? So I created this acronym for chaos. And let's talk about each of them in turn, and you'll see what this is all about. The C stands for collaboration with one purpose, and that is to improve achievement. One purpose for schools. One purpose for every decision we make in schools is to improve achievement. So let me kind of give you a couple of ideas about that. The way you build that collaborative culture, according to Sergio Giovanni, who really knows a lot about this idea, is to get people to bond themselves around a set of shared values, shared purposes, shared ideals that reflect their needs and interests and their beliefs. This is another slide that is a little hard to look at because there's so much on it, but I wanted to show you all 40 of these things at the same time. This is the result of some research that was done by an organization in Minneapolis, Minnesota. How many of you know about the Search Institute? Raise your hands if you've heard of it. How many of you live in a community that is an asset-building community? Do any of you live in that kind of a community? Longmont, Colorado, where we live, 30 miles north of Denver, is an asset-building community. We've dedicated ourselves as a community to build these assets in kids. And I'll tell you why from their research. This is 100,000 kids. 100,000 kids. They gave a survey to 6th through 12th graders across a lot of communities, big, small, cities, villages, towns. And on this survey, it asked kids, so do you feel like you have a lot of support from home and from the community and from school? And do you feel support inside yourself? And what do you do with your time? And one of the reasons the Search Institute is not everywhere in the whole United States, as an example, is that they ask these questions. Do you take drugs? How often? What kind? Do you have sex? How often? And what kind, I guess you could say. But I don't know if they asked that question. But you said that, so that made me say that. All right, so anyway. So after, the result of that surveying of 100,000 kids yielded this thought, that there are these 40 developmental assets. And guess what? Kids who have 30 or more of these 40 developmental assets do not engage in risk behavior. Now that's an astounding finding if you think about it. Schools could organize themselves around getting kids to have these assets. Now, there's a set of these assets that they found that are most aligned with high achievement. Would you give me a number for those of you who can read this, give me a number of an asset that you think might be most aligned with high student achievement? Number what? Say? Number 30 is one, and these are all important. One is responsibility. That's a good one. That wasn't the answer, but that's a good one. Number 6 is another good one. Parent involvement, absolutely important. Not the answer. 38 is another important one. Self-esteem. Notice I like what you're thinking about because that's really important. The resilience literature suggests that kids who have a good sense of themselves and a sense of the future are more likely to be resilient. That's true. That's not the answer. 17 is another example of a good one. Creative activities, very important, not the answer. Let me just tell you the answer, but go ahead. Say. 39, a sense of purpose, very good, not the answer. The answers are right here under 22, 24, and 26. And those three are school engagement, bonding to the school, and having a caring environment in the school as the assets that are most aligned with high student achievement. Now, I want you to notice, colleagues, that all of the ones that you mentioned all had to do with the kid, all had to do with what the parents do, rather than the answer, which was what we can do. Isn't that interesting? That we can have that level of impact if we choose to. That's the point. The website is www.search-institute.org. They've got resources that are wonderful for the home, for the community, for the school. It really is quite the organization. So that's the C, collaboration with one purpose to improve achievement. As I told the group yesterday, never again hire a consultant who says, I'm going to come in and teach you how to collaborate. Unless that consultant says, I'm going to teach you how to collaborate in order to improve achievement. This is not a game. We're not in therapy in school. The idea is to professionally figure out what we need to do to improve achievement of all of our kids. The H stands for a hierarchy of tiered effective academic and behavioral interventions implemented with fidelity. That's the hallmark of this RTI revolution. And let me just quickly show you what's going on here. Let me go beyond this. You can take a look at this yourself. I shared these data yesterday with the two groups I was with because it's so important. In the United States, this is what created the RTI revolution. They did research showing that for kids who are at low risk of reading failure, that's their trajectory of achievement. Kids at high risk of reading failure, that's their trajectory. If you do a good job with the core curriculum that you're offering kids, with the core materials you're offering kids, that's what happens. But when you add interventions to the mix, then you can close the gap. That started this whole revolution. Let me show you what some people have done with it. In our company, this is a silly little thing, but all this is an inventory to find out what you have in terms of interventions. And I suggest all of you create this kind of a matrix. Do you have the interventions that you need that are technologically based, that are print-based, that are service-based? Do you have all the interventions you need across all the content areas? That's a good thing to do, and then try filling it in. This is what a lot of people around mostly the United States have done with this. Arizona created this model. I like this model a lot because it has the triangle in the middle. It doesn't have percentages in the triangle, which I think makes sense. Those of you who know about RTI know that a lot of people have 80%, 15%, and 5% who need the various levels of service, determined a priori without looking at the kids. There are some schools represented by the people in this room and by the people who are watching this around the country who are in schools where 60% of the kids need a Tier 3 intervention, an intensive intervention in reading or math or behavior. The other thing I like about this is that RTI has been personalized around the country. Notice the nice, tasteful southwestern colors for Arizona. This is the one from Oregon. I'm sorry about the way that is showing here, but because there's overlap of the words. But they put the triangle the other way. When I read the Da Vinci Code, I found out that this is not an upside-down triangle. That's the female triangle, and that's the male triangle, right? That's what we were taught in the Da Vinci Code, which is fiction, by the way. I don't want anybody who's Catholic in the room to get mad. But this is Oregon's model. Here's Washington's model. And Washington's model, I don't know why they put the triangle on the side like that. Maybe it was tired or something. I don't know. But there's the same model. Here's Arkansas's model. And by the way, there was a vote of the RTI Revolutionary Army. They almost got kicked out because they don't have a triangle. So that was like a mistake almost that they made. But they're saying, try these things with kids universally first. If it doesn't work, go on to the strategic interventions, go on to the intensive. That's kind of a nice model. This is Kansas's model. I like it because they purposefully say academic and behavioral on it, which makes some sense. But what they've done is translate this into a systems change model that looks like this. And that really is the point that I'm trying to make with you through all of this keynote. That RTI is nothing if it doesn't result in systems change. So go to this website that I'll give you, and you can find out what this great state has done, and it's all free to be stolen by everybody else around the world. www.kansasmtss, multi-tier system of support, mtss.org. And they've built this whole model out. The other reason I like the way they've done this model is that notice the nice tasteful tornado motif, because it is Kansas. So they've done that beautifully, I think, too, right? Okay. This is the one in Colorado. They've built in a problem-solving model in the middle of their model. This is the one that's being used in Iowa and in Florida, where the two of the three generals live from the RTI Revolutionary Army. The mistake that I'm still yelling at them about is putting these percentages in a priori. It's a great goal to have, but it's not going to be true that kids are there at this moment, of course. Here's one from Utah, a nice model because it says academics and behavior and coaching are the three parts of this, the ABC model. That kind of fits very, very nicely, I think. This is one from Saskatchewan. When I was doing research before I went up to work with, went over, I guess from here over, to work with those folks, I wanted to see what the provincial website had about RTI. And being a chauvinistic citizen of the United States of America, I thought, well, nothing. It's rich, beautiful stuff, sophisticated stuff about RTI. I love it when those kinds of stereotypes are just blown away, especially for us people who are citizens of the United States who have way too many stereotypes about too many people. But that's a nice model from Saskatchewan. My question for you to think about is this the model that you have where you work, or is this the model that you have where you work? Be honest about it. Figure out where you are to be able to make sure that you can increase the achievement of kids in the maximum way possible. So that's basically the model that RTI is based on. The problem that we're having right now with the RTI revolution is signified by this wonderful comment from Drake and the colleagues, and that is that we're faced with the paradox of non-evidence-based implementation of evidence-based programs. So what we publish at Cambium Learning are 500 titles that all are evidence-based because we don't even think about publishing them unless there is evidence that is external to us that proves that we should. That's very nice. That's good. But if you implement what we sell you in a non-evidence-based way, it doesn't work. So implementing with fidelity is a critical part of this. I've given you some websites. When you get the electronic version of this, these are all hot links, so you can take a look at all of them if you want to. This is just my sense of what the best RTI websites are in the country. And right in here somewhere, there's the Lee County Schools one.